Let me tell you something real, and I want you to feel this deep in your core before he returns, before the phone lights up, before the message comes through, before you hear, "I've been thinking about you." Something will happen, but it won't be to him, it will be to you. It's not about waiting, wishing, or watching his every move. It's about what shifts inside you. Because the moment that internal transformation takes place, the moment you stop needing, start healing, and begin rising, that's when the energy changes. That's when life moves differently around you. And yes, that's when he feels it. Before he returns, the universe will ask you to become someone new, someone whole, someone grounded, someone powerful. Not because he came back, but because you did. When he returns, he won't find the version of you who once chased, begged, or doubted herself. He'll find someone elevated, evolved, whole, and the question won't be, will he come back? It will be, do I even want him in this new chapter? You'll detach from the outcome and reattach to yourself. That's the moment the shift begins, and it's not something loud or dramatic. It's quiet, internal, powerful. It's that sacred space where you finally stop trying to control how it all turns out. You stop refreshing your phone. You stop analyzing his silences. You stop checking for signs in his words, in his likes, in the timestamps of messages left unread. You realize none of those things matter when the real work is happening inside of you. At first, detachment feels impossible. It feels like giving up, like surrender. But then you realize it's not about letting go of the desire to be loved. It's about letting go of the belief that your value depends on his return. And that's where the power lies. That's when you go from being emotionally entangled to emotionally free. You're no longer controlled by what he does or doesn't do. You don't flinch every time your phone lights up. You stop scripting imaginary conversations in your head to get closure. You realize the closure you thought you needed from him, you're capable of giving it to yourself. This isn't some tactic or trick to make him chase you. It's not about withholding love to get a reaction. That's still attachment, just wearing a different mask. Real detachment is different. It comes from deep healing. It's when your nervous system no longer reacts to his absence with anxiety, but with calm. It's when you feel your own presence so fully that his silence no longer echoes in your mind. It's when your mornings begin with peace, not longing. And when that happens, your energy shifts completely. He may not consciously know why he suddenly thinks about you more, why he feels a tug to reach out, why your absence suddenly feels like a void instead of a relief, but he will feel something. That's because energy doesn't lie. You're not just unavailable, you're uninterested in emotional chaos. You're invested in yourself, your healing, your peace, and that is felt even if a single word is never spoken. In that place of detachment, something beautiful happens. You reattach to yourself, to your goals, to your growth, to the version of you that you almost abandoned trying to keep someone who wasn't ready. You stop living for the possibility of him coming back and start living for the certainty that you're becoming someone extraordinary. You begin filling your time with things that fuel you, not distract you, and what once felt like loss starts to feel like alignment. What once felt like rejection becomes redirection. Before he returns, this will happen first, not to him, but to you. You'll detach from the version of yourself that clung to potential, and you'll reattach to the version that chooses peace over patterns, growth over games, and self-respect over validation. And that shift, that's what sets everything else in motion. Your energy will shift from seeking to attracting. It's subtle at first, almost invisible to the outside world, but it's monumental within. You stop needing to be seen, and instead you start becoming someone who sees herself. You stop posting to provoke a reaction. You stop dressing, speaking, or showing up in ways meant to draw him in. Your entire reason for moving in the world changes, from proving something to embodying something. And that shift is magnetic. Seeking is rooted in scarcity. It whispers, if I don't get his attention, I'll lose him forever. It creates anxiety. It makes you feel small, reactive, and dependent. You overthink texts, replay conversations, try to decode silence. You begin living in response to him instead of in alignment with you. But when you shift into attraction, everything reverses. Now you move with purpose. Now you act from clarity. Now you don't need his attention. You command attention through your presence, your calm, your self-respect. And that's the energy people note. It's not desperation, but certainty. You're no longer looking outward for signs of validation. You're no longer trying to earn love. You understand that attraction begins with energy, not effort. It's not about chasing, it's about alignment. You become a match for the kind of love you once begged for. You begin holding yourself with the kind of care you used to crave from him. You develop a stillness, a confidence, a deep sense of peace that says, whether he sees me or not, I am already whole. And that energy, it speaks louder than any post, message, or carefully crafted comeback ever could. What most people miss is this. Attraction isn't just about being noticed. It's about being remembered. And the most unforgettable kind of woman is the one who stopped performing and started becoming. The one who no longer waits for attention but gives herself full permission to live, thrive, and shine. That kind of presence lingers in a man's mind long after you've gone quiet. It shows up in the stillness of his nights, in the silence of his guilt, in the memories that surface without warning. Not because you were loud, but because you were real. So when this shift happens, when your energy moves from seeking to attracting, he feels it. He may not understand it. He may not even respond to it right away. But it stirs something, because suddenly the version of you who used to orbit around him no longer exists, and the new version, she doesn't need to chase anything. She is the attraction, she is the magnet. She is the shift, and that energy alone, that's enough to change everything. You'll outgrow the version of you that needed him, and that's the transformation no one warns you about, because we often think healing means becoming stronger while holding on. We think we'll finally get him back by being more patient, more forgiving, more understanding. But the truth is, before he returns, you'll evolve so deeply that the old version of you, the one who tolerated breadcrumbs, who waited on replies, who measured her worth through his attention, will feel like a distant memory. And what used to feel like love will start to feel like self-betrayal. This growth doesn't come in a flash. It comes in quiet moments, when you look at your phone and don't text, when you feel the urge to check his profile and don't. When you stop rehearsing the same story over and over in your mind and start asking yourself what you really want in a relationship. You begin realizing that it wasn't him you needed. It was the feeling you thought only he could give you. But now, you're learning to give it to yourself, and in doing so, something incredible happens. You rise. You begin to make decisions from the woman you're becoming, not the girl you were when you met him. You begin to see how much you shrunk yourself trying to fit into his world, how many times you quieted your voice to protect his ego, how many dreams you delayed waiting for him to catch up, and suddenly that doesn't sit right with you anymore. Not because you're bitter, but because you've tasted what it means to choose yourself, and that taste is freedom. What once felt like comfort now feels like confinement. You outgrow the late-night overthinking. You outgrow the cycle of hope and disappointment. You outgrow the illusion that he was ever the missing piece. And even if he comes back, even if he says all the right things, you're not rushing to say yes. Because now, you're asking different questions. Does he match who I am now? Does he respect my peace? Does this version of me still fit with that version of him? That's the real shift. That's the hidden milestone. Before he returns, you'll become someone who doesn't need him to. You'll become someone who loves herself more than she ever feared losing him. And in that space, between who you were and who you've become, you find the most powerful thing of all, choice. Not a desperate wish for reunion, but a grounded decision for alignment. And when you get to that point, whether he returns or not becomes secondary, because now you're not waiting to be chosen. You've already chosen you. You'll reclaim your voice, your boundaries, and your vision. That's when things truly begin to shift, not because you're louder, but because you've stopped staying silent where silence was costing you your self-respect. You'll begin to recognize all the places where you made yourself smaller to keep the peace, all the times you bit your tongue to avoid conflict, all the moments you said yes when your soul was screaming no. And you'll decide, finally, that you're done betraying yourself in the name of being loved. At first, it's terrifying. Speaking up when you're used to being quiet feels like rebellion. Enforcing a boundary when you've always been flexible feels like cruelty. But soon you begin to understand your voice is not a threat, it's your truth. Your boundaries are not walls, they're doors, and your vision, that's your compass. And for far too long, you've let someone else's indecision, inconsistency, or emotional chaos fog your path. Now, clarity becomes your new standard, and clarity requires courage. As you reclaim these parts of yourself, something beautiful happens. You stop apologizing for who you are. You stop shrinking to make others comfortable. You no longer need to explain why you won't tolerate mixed signals, delayed responses, or emotional breadcrumbs. You're no longer afraid of being too much, because you realize you were never too much. You were just too honest in rooms that preferred silence. You don't wait to be respected, you embody respect, and that energy starts commanding it from the world around you. Reclaiming your voice isn't just about what you say to him, it's about what you finally say to yourself. It's about no longer begging someone else to meet your needs and instead learning how to meet them within. It's about making choices that align with your values, even if that means walking away from people you once thought you couldn't live without. Because now your vision is clear, you're not here to be someone's emotional backup plan. You're here to build a life of peace, purpose, and power. And when that becomes your foundation, the entire dynamic changes. If he returns, he's not returning to the same version of you. He's meeting a woman who no longer softens her standards for the sake of connection, a woman who knows what she wants, and isn't afraid to walk away if it's not honored. That's not cold, that's self-respect, that's growth, that's you standing in your truth, finally realizing that your voice, your boundaries, and your vision were never too much. They were just waiting for you to own them. You'll begin to attract everything that mirrors your growth. This is where the real magic unfolds, not because you're chasing love or clinging to someone's potential, but because you've become someone who finally sees her own. When you shift your energy inward, when you stop trying to fix, prove, or perform, you naturally start drawing in people, experiences, and opportunities that align with your higher self. You don't need to broadcast your healing, it radiates from you. People can feel it, the way you walk, the way you speak, the way you no longer tolerate anything that costs you your peace. That's not ego, that's evolution. Growth is magnetic. When you start choosing your peace over temporary attention, your standards over empty promises, and your purpose over distractions, everything around you recalibrates. You no longer attract the unavailable, the inconsistent, the almosts. You start drawing in those who respect your time, honor your energy, and meet you with presence, not confusion. It's not a coincidence, it's alignment. And alignment only happens when you stop trying to heal in chaos and start healing in clarity. You'll notice it in the little things, the friendships that deepen, the opportunities that arise out of nowhere, the conversations that feel nourishing instead of draining. You'll begin to feel supported by life again, not because you're forcing outcomes, but because you're flowing in a new frequency. That frequency is rooted in self-worth, and self-worth doesn't beg, it receives. You'll realize you're no longer living in survival mode. You're not looking to be rescued. You've already saved yourself. That's what most people miss. They're waiting for a person to change, for someone to see their value, for someone to finally give them what they've craved. But when you grow, that craving dies, not because you no longer want connection, but because you've built such a deep, fulfilling connection with yourself. You won't allow anything less than mutual, healthy, inspired love. And when that becomes your baseline, your world changes, not gradually, radically. So yes, he might come back. He might feel your absence like a void. He might recognize what he lost. But by then, your life will already be full of people and paths that see you, not just remember you when it's convenient. You'll attract what meets you where you are, not what pulls you back into who you were. Because growth doesn't just change how you feel, it changes what you allow. And once that shift happens, you don't chase anything. You become the thing that everything worth having finds its way to. He'll feel the absence of the old you, but you'll be living in the new one. And that's the part he never expected, because the version of you he walked away from, the one who forgave too quickly, who stayed too long, who loved him harder than she loved herself, that version is gone. Not buried in bitterness, but transformed by growth. And what he's looking for when he finally realizes what he lost isn't there anymore, he's looking for access to someone who evolved in his absence. He's looking for comfort in a space that no longer needs to be filled. He'll feel it in moments he can't predict, in a song, in the quiet, in the way your name no longer brings with it the certainty of your presence. He'll notice that the energy has shifted, because it always does. There's something undeniable about a woman who has done her inner work. She glows differently. She speaks with calm authority. She no longer plays the emotional games he once used to test her. And the biggest shock, she no longer needs his validation to feel valuable. When he returns, he'll sense it. He'll feel the strength in your silence, the clarity in your boundaries, the self-respect in your choices. He'll see the way you've built a life without him and realize how little of it still belongs to the person he once knew. And you won't be waiting. You won't be holding your breath for the apology, the effort that I've changed. You won't be bitter. You'll just be better. Not in a way that seeks revenge, but in a way that no longer accepts what you had to beg for. And here's the real truth. By the time he comes back, the question won't be, will he stay this time? The question will be, do I even want him to? Because healing isn't about getting the person back, it's about getting yourself back. And when you live from that space, you stop living for second chances, you start living for aligned ones, and if he fits into that new life, great. But if not, you won't lose sleep. You'll know that the woman you became was never waiting for him. She was waiting for you. And now that you're here, everything changes, absolutely. Here's a powerful, emotionally resonant 5-paragraph conclusion to your speech titled Before He Returns. This will happen first, wrapping up all 6 key points with strength, clarity, and inspiration. Before anyone returns, something within you has to awaken. That awakening doesn't come from a text message or a long-awaited apology. It comes from the moment you stop asking, will he come back, and start asking, who am I becoming? That's where it begins. The shift doesn't happen because someone else recognizes your value. It begins when you do. And once that spark is lit, once that internal power starts to rise, nothing can dim it. Not his silence, not his return, and not the memory of who you used to be. Because by the time he notices the shift, by the time he feels your absence as a presence in his life, you'll already be standing in your purpose. You'll already have discovered peace in places that once held pain. You'll be living from a place of alignment, not attachment. That version of you who bent over backward, who stayed small for the sake of being loved, who confused attention with affection. That version no longer runs the show. She's been replaced by a woman who loves herself too much to settle for anything less than mutual, clear, respectful love. You'll see it in how you carry yourself, in the people you now allow into your life. In the way you no longer chase closure or explanations. You've found wholeness not in someone else, but in your connection to yourself. Your detachment isn't indifference, it's strength. Your boundaries aren't walls, they're sacred spaces. And your new vision isn't about who comes back. It's about who you become as you rise from the old version of you. The power was never in his return. The power was in the transformation that happened while he was gone. So if he comes back, and he very well might, he's not coming back to the same woman he left. He's coming back to someone who no longer needs him in the way she once thought she did. And the greatest truth you'll carry is this: you're no longer waiting to be chosen, called, or validated. You've already chosen yourself, and from that place, everything that enters your life will have to rise to meet you, not pull you back down into who you were before. In the end, this was never about him. It was about you all along. The return was never the goal. The becoming was, the healing was, the remembering of who you are. That's the real victory. So now you stand in a new light. You don't ask, will he come back? You ask, does he belong in the life I've built in his absence? And if the answer is no, you'll still sleep in peace, because before he returned, you already did. You returned to your power. You returned to your worth. You returned to you. Thank you so much for being here, truly. Whether you showed up today feeling lost, curious, hurt, or hopeful, I want you to know this. Your presence means something. Your willingness to reflect, to feel deeply, and to take ownership of your journey is not a small thing. It's powerful, it's rare, and it's a sign that you're not just surviving. You're transforming. I hope these words reminded you that healing doesn't come from someone coming back into your life. It comes from you coming back to yourself. You don't have to wait for closure, for an apology, or for someone else to finally see your value. You get to choose yourself today, every day, from this moment forward. That choice is your breakthrough. You're not alone in this. So many of us have walked through the pain of waiting for someone to return, only to realize that the real return, the most important one, was our return to clarity, peace, self-worth, and power. So if you take anything with you today, let it be this: you are not too much, you are not broken, and your growth is not only valid, it's beautiful. Keep showing up for yourself, keep doing the work, keep walking in your truth even when it's hard. Because the life, the love, the peace you're searching for isn't ahead of you, it's within you, and the more you choose yourself, the more everything meant for you will find its way to your doorstep without you chasing it. Thank you again for sharing this space with me. Be kind to yourself, be proud of how far you've come, and never forget, the best is not behind you, it's ahead of you. Take care, stay strong, and goodbye for now.